this in Cleveland.
Laura, the Cleveland Browns have hired former Ravens offensive coordinator Todd Monken, which means he won't be going to New York to be the Giants' offensive coordinator. Instead, he'll be leaving Baltimore to become the next head coach of the Cleveland Browns, who chose Monken over the Rams' passing game coordinator Nate Scheelhaase and over their own defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz, which creates its own set of issues. But the Ravens have locked in on the offensive side of the football. By bringing in Monken, they have somebody to run their offense and not have to worry about going out to get a coach that they feel like could elevate the offense. They feel like their defense is strong enough to go on. They'd like to bring back Jim Schwartz, even if he doesn't want to be back right now. But they wanted somebody to help elevate the offense. They believe Todd Monken will be able to do that for the Browns instead of the New York Giants this year. And so they have now hired Todd Monken as the next head coach of the Cleveland Browns.
Adam with us all show long. Interesting so far. For the majority, we've seen these teams go with experience for these head coaching jobs. Hawk and Dan here. Hawk, what do you think of Monken's fit for the Browns, specifically an organization you know well?
Yeah, I think it fits for what they're doing now. I think Monken's a good coach, right? Like, I think even with his offense, and you saw with Lamar, you've seen it at his height when Lamar was an MVP and they had one of the top offenses. And you've seen it sputter a little bit after Lamar got hurt and, you know, some of the back channel issues. But the thing about Monken is he has familiarity with the organization, was an offensive coordinator there. And I think for what he does offensively and what the Browns have done traditionally is they're making the personnel decisions. They're hopeful that they can have a defensive coordinator like Schwartz stick around. I guess that remains to be seen. But if you know that's taken care of, personnel is taken care of, we need a head coach who can command a room, has been coaching in the NFL for a long time, and then 3 words: development of offense, elevation of offense, and stability of offense. And that puts them closer than where they were previously if they can do those things.
Yeah. The initial reaction I had when I saw the news break was, whew, what a massive loss for the Giants.
Yeah.
What a massive loss for the New York Giants. We'll get into that. For the Browns, Monken's a good coach. It feels cautious. It feels a little bit scared. That those two things can be the case. This is an organization that had the opportunity. I can't imagine what it's like to be a Browns fan, because it had the opportunity to, like, let's do something different. Let's do something that maybe other people aren't trying. And I understand the fear of maybe hiring someone that might be too young, or because I remember when Joe Brady was starting to get interviews, it was his Rolodex isn't big enough with assistants. I remember when Kevin Demoff hired Sean McVay and hearing him verbally say, I might be a year or two early,
Well,
but
really
I could
fast,
not
was
wait.
there a Joe Brady or a potential Sean McVay in this cycle?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Grant Udinski, you know, who I understand goes back to Jacksonville, Scheelhaase from L.A. It was just the opportunity to maybe do something that gives Cleveland Browns fans some hope of, all right, I have no idea if this is going to be good or the right choice, but there was maybe some excitement. You're attached. I mean, is there excitement? That doesn't mean it won't work out.
I think it varies across the board. I feel like, to your point, you go into the process early on. Monken was a guy that not a lot of people requested interviews for, but the Browns were very early in their interest with him. I mean, they requested that when he was still a Baltimore Raven. So that gave you some inclination that it was something that they were really considering, you know, based on probably their experience with him in the building. From a fan perspective, I don't know if there was going to be a hire with the options that they had available to him. That was going to bring an excitement. And that is the Cleveland Brown fan experience, and rightfully so, based on the results that haven't been there.
Before Shedeur gets in, don't you believe, though, that the team, and I know it sounds outrageous, is a little bit closer to being respectable than maybe the national narrative? The defense is loaded. Offensive talent's missing.
Well, what do you do about quarterback? I mean,
that's going to be a huge part of this, and how much Monken wants. Is it Shedeur? Is it Gabriel? Is it one of those 2 first-round picks?
Well, that's the point. They have a really great young offensive core. You see the running backs. You see the tight end. Monken runs a ton of 21 personnel and does that really, really well. I think for the Cleveland Browns, it's like if we can keep our defense the way it is, which is one of the tops in the league, and we can have a head coach who, again, can command, keep the stability that you've had in some respects in the locker room, but elevate this offense to get the most out of the tools that they have and the players that they have. That's what's been missing. I do think that there was more meat on the bone offensively for the Cleveland Browns over the past years, even if it wasn't a bunch of world-beating talent. And I think that's what the Browns are after, somebody who can stabilize that piece of their team.
Yeah, going to be interesting to see about the quarterback angle of this. Adam, you heard Dan say his first reaction was about the Giants side of this. What do you expect the Giants to do now when it comes to that OC position?
Well, it's interesting, right? Because I think a couple of these teams are in this situation. The New York Giants thought there was a real possibility that Todd Monken would be their offensive coordinator. So they're out now looking at names and candidates that can come in and take over this job. The Baltimore Ravens at one point thought that Joe Brady would be a possibility. He got the Buffalo Bills head coaching job, so he's not going to Baltimore. So the Ravens are looking. So it's interesting to me right now. We've got the Ravens searching for an offensive coordinator and their former head coach, John Harbaugh, searching for an offensive coordinator at the same time. And we also have a team in the Cleveland Browns here that hired a coach who's going to be 60 years old on February 5th. The only time he's ever been a head coach was in college in 2013 to 15 for Southern Mississippi. That's his only head coaching experience. He has not been a head coach in the NFL level. It's something he's always wanted to do. He's wanted to be a head coach. He has essentially aspired for this day. He was actually a finalist for the University of Michigan head coaching job that went to Kyle Whittingham last month. And so this is a situation where basically Todd Monken has got the chance of a lifetime, and where we've seen the Pittsburgh Steelers hire a veteran in Mike McCarthy, and we saw what it meant for him to get that job in the city that he was from. I think Todd Monken is going to be similarly moved by finally getting a head coaching job near the age of 60 in Cleveland, and brings a lot of veteran experience to that franchise now.
So in relation to the Giants, because I do think this is massively impactful for them. This is a significant loss for Jackson Dart. I think the first call that I think the Giants have to make is now to Mike LaFleur, little brother of Matt, who's I know in the conversation for Arizona, was with the New York Jets. I want that type of system, and if he's willing, because he's a lateral move, but he doesn't call the plays in LA, okay? So Mike LaFleur would be one. I think the second name that we'll probably hear is Charlie Weiss Jr., who was the play caller at Ole Miss. And I love Charlie Weiss Jr. I think he's brilliant. How much does he really have a feel for NFL offense? I think those are worthy, at least, questions and concerns that have to be asked. Nate Shieldhouse, Davis Webb. So those would be like the 3 or 4 names that if you're the Giants, it becomes a thing of urgency right now that you can't miss out on other names now.
I hear you on Charlie Weiss Jr. And listen, I'm not saying he's not going there, but I was with him for like a 3-week stretch during the college football playoff. He was adamant that his next stop at LSU is where he wants to be, and Lane Kiffin's done a lot to try to hold on to him there. But the pairing back up with Jackson Dart is interesting. All right, we have some shocking news to get to. Bill Belichick will not be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Shefty, we begin with you. Fill us in on this.
Well, this is a situation where essentially Bill Belichick is not gaining entry as a first-time Pro Football Hall of Famer. And there are very few people who appreciate history in the National Football League more than Bill Belichick. For him to be shut out of this honor obviously has to be highly disappointing and, frankly, as everybody looks at it, quite embarrassing. How voters could get to a conclusion where a man who essentially has won 8 Super Bowls, 6 as a head coach of the Patriots, who was in charge of the winningest dynasty that we've seen in football in the free agent age, doesn't make it in his first year of eligibility is utterly ridiculous. It is completely unacceptable and inexcusable. And I think that there are a lot of voters out there that love to use this job for a platform. They get access, they get interviews, they get prestige. Well, again, if you're going to get the benefits, let's hear the names of the people who didn't vote for him and have it be explained why they didn't. Obviously, people have referred to Spygate and Deflategate, but it is hard to imagine that there wasn't a part of this, if there were as many votes to keep Bill Belichick out, that was personal. Somehow people allowed personal feelings to enter into this because Bill was not always warm and fuzzy with the media, and that's not how the vote is supposed to be conducted. The question is, does the person belong in the Pro Football Hall of Fame? Yes, he does. Does he belong in the first ballot? Unquestionably. He was kept out because apparently, according to Seth Wickersham and Don Van Natta, there were people who felt that Bill Belichick should pay a penalty, pay his penance, and not be granted admission in his first year of eligibility. It makes everybody look bad. It's a poor look. The other thing about it that I think people haven't even talked about is it backs up the process 1 year. So we all know that Bill Belichick is going to get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. That'll be next year. So that's one less spot next year for somebody who has to wait another year. There are enough worthy people waiting. It's ridiculous to make them wait even longer.
Yeah, Adam, that's extremely well said. And again, you see it there, failed to get to 40 votes in the 50-person committee. Patrick Mahomes, I agree. He says, insane. Don't even understand how this could be possible. So how exactly is this possible? Well, Sal Paolantonio joining us now. And Sal, you are a Hall of Fame voter. You've made it very clear you voted for Bill Belichick. Take us inside the process for voting in this category for coaches, contributors, and seniors specifically.
Well, Laura, the bylaws of the Hall of Fame prevent me from really going into the nitty-gritty details of the meeting or what people said, and I won't do that. I will let other people speak for themselves. But when you look at it, it was a two-tier voting process, and you can see there up on your screen, the first tier was the seniors, the contributor, and the coach. So you had 5 candidates, and we were asked to vote for 3 finalists. And you have to get 40 votes for induction. And whatever the reasons were, there were some voters who left Bill Belichick off that ballot. And it could have been as simple as they wanted to put somebody else in and they figured Bill Belichick had enough votes. I didn't feel that way. I felt like with all the things said about Bill Belichick's career, the number one thing was his accomplishments and his credentials outweighed everything else, and he should have been, as Adam said, a first ballot Hall of Famer, but apparently he was left off the ballot for some of the voters, and that's up to them. They have to make their decision. They have to defend it. It's perfectly fine. I don't want to go into the business of what other people voted, but the bottom line is he's off the ballot.
All right, interesting perspective there from Sal. You're joining us in just a little bit with some more on the Eagles OC job. We'll get to that. I think they should make these votes public, but either way, only 4 head coaches in NFL history have won at least 300 games, and only 4 coaches have at least 6 championships, Super Bowl or pre-Super Bowl era. There are only 2 coaches that have hit both milestones. Papa Bear George Halas, who was a first ballot Hall of Famer, and Bill Belichick. There's just 2 on that list. When you look at this, Dan, you hear all of it. What's your reaction?
Well, my question, I don't know if Sal Pal or Shedeur are still here to answer it, but there's a new voting process, at least to my knowledge this year. Can't the Hall of Fame take a step back after realizing the voting process flaw and just be like, let's rectify this, let's fix this?
What do you think? Can they revote?
Well, they're not going to re-vote this year. The vote has been cast and the ballots are collected. And so Bill Belichick will never be a first-time entrant into the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
I think that's a miss. I think that's a miss by the Hall of Fame because I know it's a new process. I would say this.
It's a big miss.
I think that the votes absolutely should be made public.
Yep.
If you're not comfortable with your vote being public, then you should not have the right to vote. I think the second thing is you have to find a way to remove the bad blood of the feelings that are attached to it. I vote for some of these NFL awards. Is there a bias that takes place? I'd be lying to everybody in saying no, where I'm a human being. So I understand that there's a bias for some of these voters, but you have to have the capability to remove the bad blood from it. I think the third thing is you should require an explanation for how you vote. And if you can't justify why you voted that certain way, then you should once again not have a vote. I think the last thing is this. It's not the committee's job to dole out the penalty. Bill Belichick already received penalties from both those situations. He had picks taken away. He had fines levied on him. So the penance was already paid. It's not your job to then serve what you think would be the proper penalty to somebody. That's not what the committee's role is.
And football is for everybody. You're not the authority of football. That's what I would say to them. If Bill Belichick is not a first ballot Hall of Famer, then there's not a single person in the history of everything that is anything. It's as simple as that. It's really a travesty because of the reverence and respect that you know that Bill Belichick has for the game of football, what he's meant to the game of football, and how much high regard he puts that in. Like, he loves the Pro Football Hall of Fame, right? And I believe in the sanctity of football. I've literally dedicated my entire life to it, which is your results should speak for themselves. And clear bias, vendettas, or gatekeeping should never interfere with what is right. And this is absolutely wrong because, to your point, there is no rationale. There is no explanation for why he's not there. There was an opportunity to set a new standard for what a first ballot Hall of Famer should be. Instead, they've diminished the value, they've made it a spectacle, and they've interfered in a way that it shouldn't be interfered with, especially with somebody like Bill Belichick.
Don't forget this. If you're going to justify it because of Spygate and Deflategate, Tom Brady was on that team, Gronk was on that team, Randy Moss was on that team, Julian Edelman was on that team, Matthew Slater's on that team, Ty Law's on that team, Vinatieri's on that team, Vince Will Fork's on those teams.
Yeah, Adam.
When's the line get drawn?
Yeah, right. No, it's a good point. Adam, when it comes to like making the votes public and some of the things, like will we ever actually see that happen here? Because the other thing I would say is you're seeing a lot of voters that did come out and say they voted for Bill Belichick as a first ballot Hall of Famer who are mad about what this looks like for the entire committee.
It's a terrible look for the committee. And there was a brief period of time early in my career that I was a voter for about 4 years. And I always remember people saying one of the qualifications for whether you were voting yes or no on a candidate was, can you write the history of the game without this person? And there is no way to write football history without Bill Belichick, which automatically makes him a pro football Hall of Famer. The fact that there are voters who were too self-important that didn't see it that way, that allowed their personal feelings and beliefs to get in the way of that, makes the whole Hall of Fame look completely ridiculous. Adam Vinatieri is probably going to get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame this year. In what universe, with no disrespect to Adam Vinatieri, does Adam Vinatieri belong in the Pro Football Hall of Fame before Bill Belichick? But that's the universe we're living in. It's an embarrassment and a blight on the entire process.
Yeah, Adam Vinatieri, I'm sure, would say that Bill Belichick should be in there right with him or before him. Just shocking. And by the way, only Don Shula has more wins, 347 as a head coach, than Belichick with 333. You could find so many more numbers, statistics to back this up, but I think what Adam said is most important. You can't write the history of this sport without Bill Belichick. We're just getting started on NFL Live. The Eagles' nest to dial in on the head coaching carousel situation. I should say the coordinator situation with Brian Daboll landing in Tennessee and Mike McDaniel with the Chargers. The pool of offensive coordinators dwindling, and the Eagles are still looking for someone to replace Kevin Patullo, who was fired after the season. So Adam and Sal back in here. And Adam, we start with you first. Who are the Eagles talking to about this OC job?
Well, they might not be the big names that Sal in Philadelphia will like, but they've spent the last couple of days talking to Jim Bob Cooter of the Indianapolis Colts, and they've spoken today to Sean Mannion, the Green Bay Packers quarterbacks coach, who a lot of people believe has a bright coaching future, and they're looking for the right fit for one of these jobs. They've been through any number of candidates. They don't appear to be in any rush to name somebody. They have Nick Sirianni, who always could call the offense if they can't find somebody worthy of doing the job, but they're being diligent, looking for the right match. And also, again, the fit is not for everybody, as we've seen. Some people have taken other jobs. Some people have pulled out of consideration. It's not for everybody, but they think there are enough good candidates out there that they're going to come out of this with a good, strong offensive coordinator.
Yeah, I'm interested in that. It's just the structure, the hierarchy underneath Sirianni, or what's the deal there, Sal, with why this is taking so long to fill from what you know?
Well, I don't think it's taking too long. I think Adam is correct. They want to take their time and want to get it right. The names that Adam just mentioned may not be household names, but they are offensive coordinators that will open up this offense for Jalen Hurts, make it more dynamic. Also, let him be under center where he is much more effective. This is something that Dan Orlovsky has talked about all year long on NFL Live. When he's under center, Jalen Hurts is a more effective, more efficient, more productive quarterback. So you want a guy who's going to come in there and coach Jalen Hurts, a Super Bowl MVP, who's done it all in his career, and now he gets them another offensive coordinator in his ear calling plays. That's 11 different guys calling plays in his ear in the last 10 years. I don't know any other quarterback in the history of the league who has gone through what Jalen Hurts has had to go through. So you got to coach up Jalen Hurts, make the offense more dynamic, more challenging, more complex for NFL defenses. You got to work with Nick Sirianni. You got to work with the best offensive line coach in the league in Jeff Stoutland. You have the best GM in the league in Howie Roseman. You have an owner in Jeffrey Lurie who's willing to pay anything to get the best team on the field. So it's a great situation if you can make it fit. But as Adam mentioned at the top of the show, now you got the Giants looking for an OC, the Jets, the Eagles, the Baltimore Ravens. You basically go from the Holland Tunnel all the way to the Francis Scott Key Bridge down I-95, and you could interview for 4 different jobs. You'd wear out your Easy Pass.
I like that. A little geography lesson from South Pal.
Good,
Oh,
Sal.
my goodness. The best. Okay, appreciate you, South Pal. Adam, you're
goat.
sticking around. The goat. We got a couple goats. Actually, you know what? You guys are goats, too. I'm not going to leave you out of that. Dan, is this a desirable job?
Of course it's a desirable job. It's also a needle in a haystack. You have to, one, obviously be very good at the job, be very good at play call and play design. 2, I don't believe it should be your first time being a play caller because of obviously the experience that they're coming off of last year. 3, you better be tough. You better be able to handle noise and criticism. We know the stories of the passion of the fan base and what happened with Kevin Patullo and his house and family. 4, don't leave. This can't be someone who's like, hey, I'm coming here for a year and going to try to springboard into a job. So I just think like this is a needle in a haystack that has to have just so many bullet points that are very difficult to find all 4 in one person.
Yeah, I think it is a tough job. I do. And not because it's not a great situation, great organization, obviously a very talented team. I think there's a high upside with little margin of error. And that's what we've seen over the last few years, right? You have an offensive room with a ton of playmakers, but also a ton of personalities. So what does success look like? When things are going well and maybe you're running the football really well, are there people upset you're not passing it enough?
But success looks like a head coach, Shane Steichen, Kellen Moore.
Absolutely. That's exactly it. It's kind of a zero-sum game.
Yeah.
Either you become a head coach or you become the topic of every football show every single day when you show any sign of struggle, right? And so for offensive coordinators who have maybe some options, maybe some other talented, offensive personnel and organizations, is this the job that they want?
Yeah.
That's the question I would have.
What do we think about Sirianni potentially calling plays if they had to just get somebody in there who wasn't going to be the play caller? Would that be the right answer?
He's an offensive-minded head coach. I don't know the last time Nick Sirianni called plays. I would hope that Philadelphia would have a different plan.
Yeah.
He seems to be best in that role. I would imagine that there will be a different plan.
All right, we'll keep an eye on that one. And again, as Sal illustrated, there's a lot of these OC jobs that are open and in similar areas of the country. All right, still to come. A new era in Seattle under Mike McDuff, you guys. I'm a little scared to know what Dan's actual sixth sense would be. But back to our top stories around the NFL, starting with the new head coach hire in Cleveland. Adam, what do we need to know there?
Laura, the Cleveland Browns have chosen Todd Monken as their next head coach. They chose him over their defensive coordinator, Jim Schwartz, who's none too happy about the decision, and Nate Shieldhouse, the Rams passing game coordinator. And the Browns felt like they needed to solidify their offense. They think the hiring of Monken can do that, but now there are questions about who will be leading the Browns defense going forward. Meanwhile, the Las Vegas Raiders have met in person this week with Joe Brady, who got the Bills job, Davis Webb, who flew back to Denver, and Brian Daboll, who took the Titans offensive coordinator job. Now, obviously, they still would have an interest in Clint Kubiak, who's still out there as the offensive coordinator of the Seattle Seahawks. He's involved in the Super Bowl. We'll see whether or not the Raiders will be willing to wait. And I think the Cardinals also have some interest in him, as well as Mike LaFleur, the Rams offensive coordinator, who's met with Arizona this week for a couple of days. They like him. Anthony Weaver's been in play. Raheem Morris has been in play. Clint Kubiak could be in play for the Cardinals. We'll see how they decide to handle it. But we are down to 2 teams with openings from the 10 that occurred during this coaching hiring cycle. 2 openings left, Vegas and Arizona. And now with Clint Kubiak looming out there, it doesn't seem like anybody feels like they're in a terrible rush to make a hire.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on certainly where they go here, but there's also all these OC positions open, as we've talked about. So at some point, we're running out of offensive guys around the league. Okay, one of the biggest pre-draft events is going on this week as the Senior Bowl brings top prospects to Mobile, Alabama for the game this weekend. And You'll be hearing some of the names at the Senior Bowl called early during the NFL draft. This happens every year. But last year, we had 7 first-round picks that participated in the Senior Bowl, with the highest drafted player, Jets offensive tackle Armand Mimbu, going 7th overall. The Seahawks took Gray Zabel in the first round after he went to the Senior Bowl, and he'll be the starting left guard in the Super Bowl. So you just never know how this whole thing's going to go. Field Yates should be in the warmth here with us inside the studio, but instead you're out there at the Senior Bowl. And Field, we're glad to have you on the show here. Now, you've just been watching the first practice of the day. What stood out from that one? What did you see that you really liked?
Yeah, Laura, missed being around with my Wednesday crew there at NFL Live,
you.
but great to be here in Mobile, Alabama. And it was a defensive dominance during the first practice for the American team earlier on today. Jacob Rodriguez, the linebacker from Texas Tech, who anybody who follows college football knows he was one of the most disruptive players in all of college football this past season, looked exactly the part here today. He had a pair of forced fumbles. He had an interception during an 11-on-11 drills. And throughout my time coming to the Senior Bowl, Laura, either in my time during scouting and also here at ESPN, it's always felt like the intensity on both sides of the ball has been relatively close to even. Today, the defense was not just a better performing team, but just a much more spirited group. The edge rushers, probably the best position group that we have across the board here at the Senior Bowl. They have been dominant through 2 defensive practices for the American team so far, Laura.
All right, so we'll see what happens in this next practice, which you can see, by the way, on ESPNU at 5 Eastern. Field, what are you looking forward to in that one? Who should we be keeping our eye on there?
Yeah, probably the headlining quarterback in this group here, Laura, is Garrett Nussmeier from LSU, who, of course, had an uneven finish to his college career. A lot of hope and expectation. Could this be a first-round quarterback? Instead, as you know well, Laura, he was benched late in the season for LSU. As we know with Garrett, this is a player who's not this overly athletic quarterback. When he has time and space, though, he's a very gifted, adept anticipation thrower. If the offensive line during this practice holds up like the offensive line did in the the practice just prior to this, Laura, it is not going to be a day where Garrett Nussmeier has the opportunity to operate well from the pocket. But in this draft, the great mystery, of course, is we know Fernando Mendoza is going to go quarterback 1. Ty Simpson from Alabama, well positioned to be quarterback 2. Who is going to be quarterback 3, Laura, and how high will that player be drafted? Could it be somewhere on day 2? Might he have to wait until day 3? This week, for guys like Garrett Nussmeier, is going to influence that race for that 3rd quarterback taken.
Yeah, Field, you illustrated so well some of the things we know about Nussmeier's game. And when he came back to LSU this year, his goal was to win a championship. That, of course, didn't happen. He dealt with a bunch of injuries this year, as you know, as well. So I'm sure he's got a lot to prove out there. Remember, you can watch this next practice, 5 Eastern on ESPNU. Thanks so much, Field Yates, for joining us here. Hey, still ahead, a heartbreaking loss for the Rams in the NFC Championship. Now the big question. All right, let's talk a little bit more about the Rams, and it was a heartbreaking loss for them in the championship game against the Seahawks. Now we turn to the offseason of questions for them, right? The biggest of which is Matthew Stafford's future. Remember, Stafford agreed to a reworked contract last year that runs through the 2026 season, but is probably due for a raise right after this season and just the excellent performance. As for his wide receiver, Devontae Adams, he led the league with 14 touchdown catches this season, 3 more than any other player. It's also the 3rd most TD passes Matthew Stafford has thrown to a player in a single season, trailing only the 16 he threw to Cooper Kupp 4 years ago and to Megatron, Calvin Johnson, a decade prior. It's wild, right? But Stafford turns 38 this offseason. Adams is 33. They spoke on their future.
It's a tough moment that we're in right now, so we'll process the emotions of this and then worry about that. But, I mean, obviously I love this team. I love what this team is about and the fight that we had all year. And it just sucks to come up short.
Can't generalize, 6 months of my life, 10 minutes after a loss. So appreciate the guys in this locker room a whole hell of a lot. Everybody that helped me, and helped our team be as successful as we were this year. And that's all I'll answer for you.
All right, so obviously that was right after the game. Hard to really figure out what you're doing at that point. But when you do hear that, Hawk, what do you think is next for these two?
It feels like 2 players that were all in to empty the tank this season, to go for the Lombardi, and I could see a world where they're hoisting it, and Devontae, Stafford, McVay maybe, they run off to the sunset. It's such a letdown to get to that top of the mountain and then fall all the way back to the bottom and say, like, man, we got to do this all over again. These are competitors, and I'm sure that is where their head at. There's going to be a lot of soul searching that has to take place because there's higher expectations a year from now. You want to hope that you can duplicate the success you had this year, but there is a clear line of failure. It is Super Bowl or bust, and maybe that was their motto this season. But I do think that how good they were surprised a little bit of the football world, even though they're incredible players and have always been legends. And I think next year it's going to be an even more difficult road to duplicate even what they did this season.
Yeah.
F them picks. Run it back if I'm Les Snead. I am. I would expect Stafford to take some time away and play again. That is just a complete guess just off of the way he played this year. You're so close. And I understand the building for the future. Go back to the old method. You got 2 first-round picks. If Stafford comes back, you take those 2 first-round picks and you trade for Max Crosby. You get the game changer on defense. That offense will be just fine. Devontae's going to play again, all that. You go get Max. Because if you think about the Seattle game and the fall off of that defense, it was in part because you couldn't trust the corners, so you played coverage, and you didn't have that pass rush that won right now. Booger McFarland was actually texting me about it with it, and he said the thing about their defensive line in L.A. is they're all bull rushers. They don't have somebody that wins instantly, Max Crosby. And if it's not Max, then you take those picks and you go up in the draft and you get one of those defenders from Ohio State, or you get a Reuben Bain from Miami.
Good ones. Yeah.
You have one more year. One more year to go get it done.
Man. It does. I mean, it feels like some of these guys, though, who have tried to, like, run it back for the 1 more year, it doesn't work. And then everyone's like, man, we missed out on 2. They have the 13th and the 29th pick in the first round.
Go get Max Crosby.
Okay. I like it, Dan. I hear what you're saying. I'm picking up what you're putting down, but it's a little risky. A lot of interesting receivers in this game. So, Hawk, we're going to hang some things in the Louvre here. Let's get to these Super Bowl wide receivers. We're putting you to work today.
Finally.
We've got a top 5, the most impactful wideouts in the Super Bowl. Start with number 1.
This is why they give me Emmy trophies.
Yeah, well, you're the only one that has one. Yeah.
All right, we're going to start with number 1. When I'm looking at wide receivers, I need you to be one of 4 things. And if you're really good, all 4 things. You got to be able to win vertically. You got to be able to win horizontally. You got to have incredibly strong hands, or you got to have a great feel for space. Number 1, we're going to start with Jackson Smith-Njigba, who has all of those things. So what you'll see in this tape is, number 1, you're going to see a 3rd down play where he is moving the stick. Sticky hands, great feel on the sideline, gives his team a new set of downs. The next play you're going to see is that big shot corner post down the middle where he sets the safety to one direction and opens a window for his quarterback. And lastly, the touchdown, the versatility to be able to line up in the backfield and still create those mismatches. All right, number 2, a little bit of surprise here. We're going Kayshon Boutte, right? When you look at the Patriots receiving core, they are much more of a receiving core by committee than the Seahawks, who are also that. But with Boutte, his specialty is vertically winning down the field, and you'll see this in the game versus the Texans, one-hander and contested catches as well. He's done this incredible all season, and he's been a little bit of an outlet for May when he has gotten in trouble in games. Incredible feel, great hands, creates big plays. That's why Kayshon Boutte is number 2 there. All right, now we're going to go number 3, Stephon Diggs. Now, he absolutely fits that mold of Jackson Smith-Njigba for the New England Patriots. He is also a contested catch guy in this stage of his career. He's also incredible feel. He could also win horizontally. So I would give Stephon Diggs 3 out of the 4 still. He hasn't had a huge playoff, but when they've needed him to move chains, when they've needed him to make plays, obviously he has the pedigree to do so. Number 4 here, Cooper Kupp.
Okay.
Cooper Kupp, shout out to him who's playing in his 2nd Super Bowl here. What Cooper Kupp is incredible at, and you talked about it earlier, Dan, is his feel for space.
Yeah.
He still has the ability to win horizontally. Vertically, it's not quite the same, and he has strong hands. So I'd give him 2.5 out of the 4, but I think he's going to be a difference maker. Sam Darnold was moving the chains on 3rd down versus the LA Rams. A big portion of that was these plays you saw here from Cooper Kupp being able to do so when it mattered. All right, so number 5, we're going to start with Rashid Shaheed here. Now,
Speedster.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you both of these plays because I'm also going to go Hollins too. So both of these guys are number 5 because I couldn't decide. But they both do the same thing. 1 out of 4 here. They went vertically down the field. You saw this big play from Shaheed early in this game, and this is a tone setter to make sure the Rams knew that they had to defend that portion of the field. Out the gate, we're going downtown. Mac Hollins came back. I didn't expect much, but he made a couple of really big plays, especially this one on the flea flicker. He had the bottles going in the pregame. I think he sets the tone for them. He had a bigger effect on that receiving core in that game than you thought. These are my guys. And our last, Lube. And I wish we could put both of those guys in.
I know, they're not both.
Take a screenshot right now, Mac.
They're both there.
Like
now, Shaheed's family, you guys take a screenshot. All right, there you go.
Hang it in the Louvre. Oh, was there anybody
I like
else,
it.
Hawk, that you were like, this
What was
guy
that?
might be on? What
You
happened
just
there?
catch my fist when I went to pound you?
That's the only thing he can catch.
Warriors.
Whoa!
that-
Pause.
Is that what okay.
Listen,
Got a
the
little hand.
What?
this
Come on,
is
line
getting
'em up.
worse. I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to just let you guys continue on. Wow.
This is what I was
Who
saying.
actually
interesting
has a
about
little
this
hand?
in the game. How he handles the double team, because I think it's coming.
Uh-huh.
How they handle the physicality of Seattle's secondary. They can
Yeah,
have-
those corners.
legit.
Woo.
And they were physical in the NFC title game all the way through the route.
Good.
All right. I know that some of that's going to be clipped off and put somewhere. And listen, I'm not mad at you. It should be. We'll see you tomorrow on NFL Live. We got a lot more coming your way previewing the Super Bowl.
very.
SportsCenter
Angles.
is next.